What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Epic 7 video. We have the balance patch adjustment preview, and it seems like this is given to us a day early, so I'm not complaining. Let's check it out together. Now, before we start, guys, I already glanced over the hero list, and there's one major thing missing, and that is Twisted Eidolon KAYRON is, I guess, not getting buffed before his banner ends. So that's very surprising to me. If I was a betting man, I definitely would have bet that they gave him some kind of love. I'm sure there's players out there that are doing fine with him, but I think anyone that looks at him objectively will say his kit definitely needed some love. Overall, I just don't think he did enough. He needed too many stats. Everybody came up with a million solutions that would just make him a lot better, feel better to play. But I guess Smilegate either couldn't come up with buffs for him that they liked, or they thought he was appropriate, which I have no clue how they would ever see that. But anyways, enough talking about KAYRON, guys. It's unfortunate. No Moonlight Haste either, which is another one I saw a lot of people talking about. But instead, we have Little Queen Charlotte and Spirit Eye Celine as the ML5s. Jacko, which is out of nowhere. We'll talk about that when we get to her. And then, yeah, let's just go ahead. A lot of other units plus artifacts. Let's just start from the top here and lead into Little Queen Charlotte. So, very short. Looks like she's just getting damage dealt increased on her skill 3, the Will of Lemaire, against dark elemental targets. And it says Little Queen Charlotte is a warrior who excels at dealing massive damage to dark elemental targets, obviously. Additionally, she reduces the crit hit damage received by both her and her allies. They're kind of just adding fluff here. This further solidifies her role as a hero capable of suppressing dark elemental heroes with high health. So they're saying she'll inflict even greater damage to dark elemental targets. We have to see how much that is, and that's all they're giving her. So overall, here's my thoughts on this, guys. It's at first glance doesn't seem amazing, but them touching on the crit damage reduction, I'll talk about this as a whole because I've been playing a ton of Little Queen Charlotte this RTA season because of the influx. Every game pretty much has an Apocalypse Ravi on one side or the other, so I've been playing a lot of Little Queen Charlotte. That being said, I think a lot of players experience, or the trouble they're going to have running LQC, Little Queen Charlotte for short, isn't her damage, right? For the most part. Extra damage is nice. There are some times like proof Apox behind a escort or damage mitigation will survive, especially if your Little Queen Charlotte doesn't have attack up. But still, that's not the main issue I think a lot of players have. The main issue is players getting into that skill 3, that initial skill 3, because there's just so many units that can either kill her straight up. A lot of aggro and cleave can just kill her before she gets, she's typically a slower unit. They'll usually kill her first or debuff her in a million ways. A lot of them being like Mediator Kowarik is a popular one. Usually he'll just, an S2 is enough to both strip any attack up you gave her, plus land that very critical attack break, which usually will let, like, for example, an Apocalypse Ravi survive her skill 3 when she finally goes around to it, right? Plus you have barriers, all that stuff. Other than that, anything just with high damage can potentially kill her before she takes a turn, or just any other dedicated debuffer will also just ruin her day, right? So anything that, if she never gets attack up, if she gets blinded, if they have anti-crit, a lot of times the payoff isn't there. So I'm not sure if increased damage dealt is what she needs for the average player. But personally, I think this is kind of nice. Is it what I would have preferred on her? No, definitely not. I wanted some other areas of adjustment. But with Benimaru's Tachi coming out, guys, maybe we can drop Hellcutter. And now maybe even if, let's say, a Mediator Kowarik attack breaks, hits us with the, attack down, maybe it's enough. Maybe this buff is enough to still threaten, those Mediator Kowarik's or those Apocalypse Ravis, depending on how much damage this actually gives. So we'll see in that regard. It might let us build, drop Hellcutter, build Benimaru's Tachi, build her a little bit faster. I personally run her with effect resist. And what I mentioned with the critical hit damage reduction, a lot of times I use Little Queen Charlotte not just to threaten Apoc Ravis, but also to provide like that adamant shield for the team. So like I said, for me personally, I kind of don't mind this. I think it will help me out. But I think for the average player just wanting to run an LQC, this misses the mark in a lot of areas. So let me know what you guys think overall of this particular buff. Next up, we have Spirit Eye Celine, guys, which is another unit that definitely could have used some love. Some of y'all might argue other units needed more, but I definitely think she needed something here. And it seems like they're increasing the Nimble Blade, or Nimble Sword, excuse me, from 35, which used to be doubled to 70% if you didn't know how it works. We doubled this chance to get that special animation to increase damage. And now is going to be 100%, right, after doubling. So when we're possessed, when we're in that skill 3, we have that 100% chance, which is just very good. This is one of the things that I thought she always could have used. She was never like insanely powerful, meta breaking. And so the fact that you could just 30% of the time not proc this Nimble Blade and just whiff a hit and do like mediocre damage just felt really bad. So I like this change first off. big time. Now, the second ability they're giving her is going to be possession amount of absorbed health increase, which is kind of like, her getting the health back whenever she does damage while in possession. So let's see their explanation here. These changes ensure that she can consistently activate Nibble Sword. I like that. Allowing her to effectively suppress enemies in a variety of situations. With increased damage output and enhanced health recovery, to become an even more formidable force on the battlefield. Okay, it's kind of similar to Little Queen Charlotte. There's a lot of units that can just... Spirit Eye Celine has a million counters, or a million units that can kind of bypass her S2 mitigation, her survivability, and just kill her outright. But in the right hands and in the right situation, she is a force to be reckoned with, a must ban almost in RTA, and then obviously in Guild Wars Arena, right? One of the best light baits that just does a ton of damage, provides support for the team via immortality, etc. But like Little Queen Charlotte, like I was saying, this isn't going to make her more, or it's not going to address her weaknesses. It's just going to make her more consistent in her already niche role. I think on top of that, just like LQC I mentioned, we might swap some builds around. Maybe now, I think the most popular builds are like Speed Pen or Lifesteal Pen. Now we can go maybe drop the Lifesteal if this is enough health recovery, and just maybe Speed will become the premier, or maybe Destruction. Destruction or Speed will become the premier stat line. But overall, I don't mind this at all. I think this part above is very good. But like I said, she's still going to probably remain niche for RTA at least. Next up, guys, we have Jacko, and this one is crazy. Does this mean Guilty Gear is coming out? This was out of left field, man. I mean, I'm not going to say Jacko doesn't need buffs, but this is kind of crazy. So if a lot of y'all that are either newer or returning players maybe don't even know what she does if you played Guilty Gear way back when or never saw a Guilty Gear run. Let's see here, guys. Trick or Treat is now gaining increased combat readiness. And the Chains of KAYRON, which was, she would apply a buff to the back row unit that you just from the start of the battle, your back row unit would get a buff that had a 25% chance to stun. So if you combine that with an AoE unit, that back row unit would always have a chance whenever they attacked or hit enemies to stun at a 25% proc rate. Now, guys, look at this. It's looking to be a 100% chance to either stun, unbuffable, blind, or restrict for one turn. Cannot be dispelled, same thing as always, but 100% chance potentially to stun, guys, or you're always going to hit debuffs, and if you bring AoE onto that, that is 4 units potentially getting stunned, or 100% chance of getting one of these debuffs, which is absolutely crazy. I think this is a insane buff if I'm not missing anything here. And then we also get the increased combat readiness like I mentioned. Other than that, the Forever Elysian Driver, which I believe is a skill 3, right? Gets damage dealt increased, and will also get increased combat readiness of all allies too. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything here, guys. One other note: she's not gonna increase combat readiness of all allies here. Instead, she gets 10%, but more just for herself. Regardless, I think the Chains of KAYRON buff is the real crazy part of this kit. And then she also gets increased combat readiness of all allies here on the second hand part too. So. Dang, guys, hopefully if y'all had a Jacko, this is probably going to make her more viable. I expect some crazy combos to come out from this if things are as I'm reading here. 100% chance potentially to land one of these debuffs, including stuns, is absolutely insane. So combine that with an AoE unit and go to town. Let's see if Guilty Gear comes back. Maybe start saving your bookmarks. Summer Break Charlotte up next, guys, who definitely needed some love as well, and probably going to get a run here when summer comes up alongside Summer Luluka. So the caught a big one, which, let's see here, guys, is going to get a 5% increased combat readiness. Okay, not too drastic. 5% combat readiness increase. The S2 is going to get 10% more crit, which is always welcome. I do remember, I think, I haven't used Summer Break Charlotte in a minute, but I do remember her gearing to be a little bit awkward. As you can do a lot of different builds. She wants a lot of different stats. But at the start of the battle, she'll gain 60 Fighting Spirit now and grants enhanced dual attack to the caster. Wow, that's a big change. So from the get-go, she's going to get 60 Fighting Spirit, where before she would only get 15. And looks like she's losing this. Before she would, when she was a Fighting Spirit full, she would get a Dispel on herself, a Cleanse, as well as an attack up and skill reset. Now she's getting 60 Fighting Spirit. And she'll start with dual attack, enhanced dual attack from the get-go. So this will kind of mitigate the sort of slow ramp-up style of Summer Break Charlotte and let her go a little ham from the get-go, I think. And then the skill 3 Whale Hello there now does a self-cleanse and 50% defense pen in exchange for the HP differential scaling, which I think is much better, right? 50% defense pen is much better than this, because a lot of times I think if you were hitting a high health unit or unless they were missing a ton of health, this 50% defense pen should just be better overall for the most part. But now it consumes 80 fighting spirit instead of having a cooldown. So that's the major change here, guys. Her skill 3 will now require fighting spirit, but she starts with 60, and she'll start with the dual attack, enhanced dual attack from the get-go. And then she'll have the dispel herself here when she procs that. So I think this is overall a big win for Summer Break Charlotte. She doesn't have to ramp up as hard, and she'll do more from the start of the match. So I like those changes overall. Moving right along, guys, we have Sharoon here, and we'll go through these briefly here. So she's going to get an increased, at the end of the turn, grants random buff and a barrier to ally, except for the cast for the highest attack for 2 turns. So the random buff will now be increased from 1 turn to 2 turns. And now, instead of increased crit chance, which is a terrible buff, continuous healing is okay. But increased speed and immunity are probably better overall. So this should be a net positive in terms of the buffs. And it's 2 turn now instead of 1 turn. Speaking of 2 turns, the May You Perish Awakened effect will now be... she now decreases buff durations from 1 turn to 2 turn, which is pretty good. That's significant with the way the meta is shifting currently. That being said, though, I'm not a big Sharoon player. I've only played her a few times when she first came out. And I haven't really fought too much of her other than when people were testing her with, like... Death Dealer Ray. So I'm going to need y'all's help, any Sharoon mains out there. If I were to guess, I don't think this is going to make her meta by any means. Players that already like to run Sharoon will maybe make her feel a little bit better. And that's kind of the gist of this whole buff patch so far for the most part, besides like the Chains of KAYRON from Jacko. But yeah, I think these are welcome changes for sure, but it's not really going to change too much overall. I don't expect to see a ton of Sharoons, which is, you know, that's probably fine. But yeah. Let me know, you guys that play a ton of Sharoon. Let me know what y'all think of those buffs specifically. Now, Aruka is a unit I really like. Let's see here, guys. Thrashing the Prairie, which is her skill 3. She's going to be losing her attack up in exchange for a skill cooldown reset when she gets a kill. And the damage dealt is increased when they have a barrier. Okay, so kind of like Little Queen Charlotte, she's going to get more damage. Guys, I'm not a fan of this change at all. The thing that made Aruka unique, because, I mean, extra damage on the barrier is nice, but we're kind of just becoming another, like, Operator Cigarette, I think. But losing the attack up is kind of annoying, because the nice part of Aruka was not the skill 3, really. The skill 3, we've all seen it kind of do poo-poo damage. So getting more damage on it is welcome, but I think the nice part, or that made her unique, Aruka unique, was the skill 1 when she has attack up, and then she combines that with like a Berry's Tooth. The damage when she boxed was like incredible. It felt really cool. It made her unique. It also just looked awesome. But her losing this is going to make it so we have to bring an attack up unit now. She can't self-give attack up. And on top of that, if we want to run like Benny Maru's Tachi to give herself attack up, we're going to lose that at Berry's Tooth like I talked about. So we'll have to wait to see on how much damage this is actually given. But even if it's a ton, I kind of don't like that they're just making her another nuke unit when there's barriers. So you're going to seek out barriers. You're going to hopefully, if it's enough damage, we don't even know that yet, blow them up, extinct them, and then reset to lead into another skill 3 that maybe, hopefully a barrier's still present, but probably not. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this change overall, but if the damage is good enough here, then hey, she'll do some crazy damage and extinct the unit. All right. Next up, guys, is Assassin Cartucho, which is very interesting. I never thought we would... I haven't seen this guy beyond meme players run him for fun here and there, but maybe he has some potential as like anti-cleave, anti-aggro to sort of survive. That being said, there's a lot of anti-evasion coming out, just like the Light Karen. Make sure y'all check out my first impression video of that. Last piece, Kareen, I should say. But yeah, let's see the changes here. Shred is going to change from Bleed to Provoke, which is definitely a welcome change. Bleed, guys, Assassin Cartucho was never really known for damage. You kind of run him for those evasion memes. And having Provoke, he also has a stun, so he'll have a lot more utility with his Provoke. I like this change a lot. The Battle Frenzy, which is the unique part of his kit, the skill 2. Now he's gonna get 5% increased chance of evasion here, which I believe was an EE before. So that they're straight up giving him a 5% more EE, and he's losing the auto evade. So if you didn't know how it works, guys, Assassin Cartucho automatically evades. Every turn he takes, he'll automatically evade the next hit. Now he's just going to straight up get 50% evasion, which I'm not sure how to feel about that. So obviously he would dodge the next hit, but then on a follow-up hit, right, he has he's very susceptible to dying. Now he'll just get straight up 50% evasion. Okay, interesting. With a 5% evasion increase buff there, and then the imprisoned concentration will change from attack to effectiveness, which I guess is cool. You know, like I said, he has a lot of utility on his kit. So the exclusive equipment is getting changed here, guys. The 5% additional that I said, will now just be built in, obviously, and now it's going to get changed to 20% evasion for the caster. So this 50% will become 70. Okay, now that I see the 70%, I like this a lot better. The auto evade becoming 70%, the auto evade for one hit I think 70% is much nicer. So overall, I like this. I think this will maybe make the players that like to meme around with Assassin Cartuja, maybe make him a little bit more solid in terms of both utility and evasion. And don't forget to change your EEs, so you get to change that in. Very nice. All right, next up, guys, is the artifacts. Wings of Light and Shadow, which is Ilinov artifact, if I'm remembering correctly. And this is a night artifact. So beforehand, it had the requirement of a single attack, and now they're changing it to when attacking. So now it'll work for AoE, is what I'm assuming they're changing. You still need a crit, but now it'll work on any attack. Okay, that's definitely a welcome change, but I don't recall anyone using this artifact. Maybe because of the fact that it only works on single attacks, but even with AoE, Summer Break Charlotte, a unit, so it has to be a knight that wants to do damage, that also wants crit, and doesn't have another artifact that they would prefer. So definitely a welcome change. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head besides maybe SBC, but I think her own artifact is good too. But we'll see. Definitely a welcome change. I just can't think of anyone off the top of my head. Let me know if y'all have any plans for Wings of Light and Shadow post buff. Now, the Sword of Winter Shadow, another artifact I don't use too often here. But now we're getting increased attack by 15%. And instead of removing 15 souls, we're gaining 10 souls and removing 10 souls. Okay, that's very powerful. Oh, man, guys, I think soul gain is just so... We already know Taga Hells is so powerful. Just anything that gives souls is so powerful in this game at the moment. And gaining more souls, especially on an artifact like Sword of Winter Shadow, I think this has a lot of potential, but this is definitely not my wheelhouse. So I can't really predict just yet how powerful this is going to be. But definitely I think this is a huge net positive in gaining 10 souls, right? We lose 5 souls that we remove, but gaining 10 souls is huge, okay? Iron Fan. Now, this is one of the worst artifacts, except for some niche, one-shot potential in hunts for like Watcher Shuri, I remember. And now it's going to be completely revamped from, instead of changing damage dealt, which, like I said, you would run like Watcher Shuri maybe to fight, Banshee. Now it's going to be when using an attack that hits all enemies, so AoE, except for basic skill, increase combat rate of the caster by 15 to 30%. Okay, so units like Faithless Litica, there's a few other rangers that do AoE, and now you get increased combat rate of the caster by 15 to 30%. Okay, maybe potential for some players, but remember, guys, it's a ranger, so the ranger needs to not want Guiding Light, or you'll have to be trading off Guiding Light on whatever unit you have in mind. Just remember that. So, interesting change. They're going to have a recall for it as well, which I think they should. Anyone that's using this to one-shot, I'm sorry, guys. That kind of sucks. But hopefully y'all can adjust. With that being said, guys, this is my exact thought right here. And let's wrap it up there. I've talked enough. Very disappointed with no ML KAYRON, but hey, maybe some of y'all are looking forward to these changes. Overall, I rate this like a 6.5 out of 10. Not sure how much this is going to change, and now we have to wait 8 weeks for the next balance patch. But I do like a few things out of this overall. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, guys.